in consulting, it's more about diagnosing what exactly has gone wrong or what exactly is going wrong with your client, which will be basically a company, right? So identifying the problem. Now, for such big companies and even like growth stage startups, identifying exact problems can be a difficult task because everyone in their own company has their own job to do, and it's very difficult to just go ahead and diagnose an internal issue. And that's where consultants come in. They bring in their both sectoral experience and their structured mindset to break down the problem in a systematic manner to arrive at the exact problem. And once you know the exact problem, I mean, again, as I said, giving the solution is not that big a deal. So yep, that's what I think consulting is. Siddharth.
Yeah, sure. I think Ayush covered it in good detail, right? For us engineers who are predominantly focused on the analytical skills in our curriculum and whatnot. So, consulting is something like, I mean, this was the analogy that my senior gave me. Let's say your friend is in trouble. He comes to you, to your room, and says, "Hey, I have this problem. What do I do?" So that is typically how I associated consulting in the first time I heard about it, right? But as my understanding evolved, how it I mean, what consulting exactly is that, let's say you own a business, or let's say you are a part of a big corporation, do a lot of things, and people within the organization are used to doing things a particular way or used to one way of thinking, and sometimes an external perspective always helps. So, and that external perspective could be for any business problem. It could be for growth, it could be for cost cutting, it could be for trying out something new, it can be anything. So, in this particular setup where external perspective is all that is needed, consultants come in. There are two parts to solving a problem. One is you first understand the problem and propose the solution, and then you need to implement the solution. So different consulting firms do parts of the first, second, or a combination of both. So that is what these consulting firms do. And in India, we do, we're a very growing, I mean, we're a growing, very, we grow at a really quick pace, and we have a lot of startups, our economy is booming. So it is understandable that, the consulting industry in India is also booming because all these growing corporations and startups do need consultants to help them fuel their growth, figure out the way forward, and things like that. So yeah, that is with respect to consulting in India. And with respect to talking about how to land an offer, we're going to restrict our conversation to the campus processes. And this one in specific, we'll restrict it to the internship process because I think a bulk of our audience here is going to be sitting for the internship process. But a lot of these things are transferable to the placement process as well because the processes are not different per se. The only thing that is hugely different is the span or the time span through which the process extends. For the internship process, I think it'll be about a month maximum. But for the placement process, it's like a marathon where it goes for 3 months. You need to keep your things together. So that is pretty much the difference. So I'll just talk about a rough timeline on how things move, right? So sure, most of you are probably doing your interns or things like that. So during that time, it is important that you guys take some time out, think what you want to do, and I'm pretty sure the internship team has put out a lot of documents on, what are the various companies that visited campus last year, what are the profiles they offer, how to prepare for them. I think that's called the Blue Book. You can go through that. That will give you a rough picture. Talk to a lot of seniors. Even, nowadays there are a lot of career coaches on YouTube. You can just search on YouTube. You'll find out a lot of, 20-ish people talking about life choices and career and whatnot. So try reading through YouTube, your friends, your seniors, your peers, whatnot, right? And try to figure out what you actually like. Some of it you'll also get from your first 2 years on campus or first 3 years on campus. Once you are done with all of that, now what you need to do is you need to take out some time, make a resume. We'll cover a bit of that, a little later, but you need to make a resume. Then you kind of apply to these companies. Then they'll get back to you with what is called a resume shortlist. So everyone in the resume shortlist is assigned a buddy. So you have what is called a buddy process. So the idea of the buddy process is the buddy is the representative of the firm to you. So the buddy will help you through preparing for the process. That is the interviews. Then you'll have some doubts that you might want to ask about case prep, anything in general, right? So the buddy will kind of help you through that, and you can also use the buddy to do some cases, you know, get yourself better prepared for the interviews, and then finally there comes the D day, which is the interview day. You give your interviews, and this is the rough process, but there is a lot good that goes into this than just these steps. So I think we'll start covering those things one by one. So I think Ayush can take that part.
Right. Body process, right?
Yeah. No, we'll start with resumes.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah.
Um, okay. So the plan that we had in mind for resume was that we'll talk a bit theory, but we'll do more practical. We will show you our resumes and the rationale behind putting, what we put. But before that, let's do a bit of theory. So yeah, the entire point of resume shortlist, or what you've obviously heard, would be peaks or spikes. Yeah, that's basically just checking, do you take up multiple things at once, and not only just take up but rather also excel in them. That's exactly what they're trying to check. Because, like, what did Siddharth say about consulting? We are there to bring in diverse perspectives, right? And to bring in diverse perspectives, we need to have shown some amount of diversity in our lives as well. And not only just show diversity, but rather have performed well in those particular fields that we chose. And that is exactly the logic or the rationale behind a resume shortlist and the peak system. So the peak system is designed in such a way. I mean, first of all, though, yeah, I don't find it appropriate to call it the peak system, but there is no alternate word, so I'll just use it. So your resume sort of gets divided into 5 or 6 sections, which you already do it, right? The first one is scholastic achievements. So showing a very good CGPA, or having some really nice scholarships. Now that shows that, yeah, if you do take up a CAD seriously, you perform well in that, right? So that sort of becomes a peak. Then moving on, I think after scholastic achievements, there's professional experience. So, I mean, I don't know. In interns, I don't think professional experience matters a lot, because I mean, you're just second year students who do not have much. You haven't had much exposure to go ahead and do a really nice professional stint. In placements, having a day one intern or having a really nice foreign research intern sort of signifies a peak with respect to professional. But for interns, I would say, nah, this section you really can't do a lot. I know a lot of you are doing foreign research interns, well, but then uh, that just decreases the importance, in my opinion. If everyone is doing the same thing, that just sort of decreases the importance, because again, peak is supposed to be something you excel at, and for that it has to be competitive. So that's professional experience. Then is POR. So Siddharth, do you want to cover PORs and the extracurriculars?
Sure. So yeah, so coming to what is called positions of responsibilities, right? So we all put what all we've done in our PORs and all that, but essentially what they're looking for here is your leadership skills and how you're able to work well within a team, right? And sure, and also the impact that you are able to deliver as a part of that team. So try to frame your points. It doesn't matter which POR you're a part of. Try to frame something along the lines of, this is what I'm a part of, this is what I did, and this is the result or the impact that the action generated. So once you're able to put things in that perspective, it looks a lot more presentable and understandable to a person who is not aware about all the positions in our institute, right? Because not just people from our institute or alum see it, it's also people from the outside world, the partners who usually see your resume. And you get about 30 seconds eye time for your resume. That's just split across 4 or 5 sections. That's 5, 6 seconds per section. So your headings and the first line that you put as a summary matters a lot. So you need to focus on keeping things concise. And that is also a skill of a consultant that they're looking for, right? Ability to convey things in a very concise manner. So that should reflect in your resume. So that is about PORs. And then you usually have your extracurricular activities, and you have your co-curricular activities. Let's say you took part in a lot of competitions. I think Ayush has taken part in a lot of competitions, if I remember. So yeah, so putting those things helps. Let's say as an intern, the company is not really sure if you're interested in consult, right? So letting them know through your interest in competitions or interest in trying out projects or interest in trying out anything that hints towards strategy or consulting is a very good way for you to tell the company, hey, I'm interested in this. So those things genuinely help. And coming to extracurricular activities, a lot of you may be good at sports, culturals, social service, whatever that is, right? You would have some sort of a hobby. So all these things do help. So where do they help? One, if you're good at sports or something, right, that genuinely tells you're disciplined at something, that is great. If you're good at literature, let's say you're good at writing, you're good at speaking, those are all hard skills for consultants. Then coming to social service, you're essentially doing a service, right? So that also matters. And finally, coming to your hobbies, people who interview you throughout, people who interview you are buddies, and let's say even once you become a consultant, you're always in a conversation with someone, you're networking with someone. So these things are a good starting point to a conversation. So when you think you're putting something in the resume, it doesn't have to say something towards the fact that you're smart or something. Even good conversation starters. Let's say you put something along the lines of, "I invest in the stock market." Let's just say something very simple like that. But there may be a lot of people who do that and want to talk about your investing strategy, hypothesis, and whatnot. Right? That's a conversation starter, and that makes your inroads into developing a conversation much easier, and you will also feel a lot more calmer talking to the person. It's natural for people to be intimidated while talking to senior people from the company. So I think these things do help you with all those stuff. So that is one. And coming to the resume in general, right? So the reason why they look for peaks is they want some people who are good at what they do. So a peak is basically something that you would consider you are in the top 10% of something, right? So why that is the case? So think of your resume as something that is presented to the client of a consulting firm. So when I am the firm and I present a resume of my employee to the client, that resume should look really good, that the client will feel that he wants to pay money to hear external perspective from this person. So that is the reason why they try to take in a diverse set of people who are good in different things, so that you're able to bring in different points of view and also work together as a team. So that is what they look from a resume. And in general, talking about peaks, right? There is no particular way to quantify peaks, although a lot of us within the placement team and outside the team and whatnot, right? We have tried to quantify things. We have tried to come up with some pattern recognition of how consult shortlist happens. But to be genuinely honest, it varies year to year. And sometimes it also varies from person to person and depending on your cohort. For example, you need things that stand out, but those things also need to be sufficiently unique. That is one. And the next thing is, it doesn't matter what you're doing. All that matters is you need to be good at what you're doing. So let's say suddenly, right? Let's say you guys started to do something that your seniors didn't do at all, but you guys are really good at it. That doesn't mean that is not a peak. It can well be a peak. So be open with whatever you're putting in your resume, but make sure, just think this one thing. And if I'm putting this, I'm talking about sections, not individual points. Sections as a whole are the points that are there in that section put you in the top 10% of people who are doing it. Those top 10% would be defined by two metrics predominantly, right? It could either come from the brand, or it could come from the impact. So brand is difficult to get being a second year, because it's usually the intern and the institute's internship process that gets you a good brand in your resume, or through the interns that you actually want to do. Since you're going to be applying for the interns itself through these companies, the easier way to get is through impact. So let's say you've done some really quality work for uh, in your POR, or let's say you worked with a startup and that made a difference to that startup. Those type of impactful points really help you. And in general, in an internship process, these firms are a little clueless as to whether you're interested in consult or not. So it is very important that you leave enough hints in your resume that, hey, I am interested. Just because you apply, it doesn't mean that the firm will think you're interested. You need to show some interest in your resume so that they can find that you're interested. And of course, you need to have a honest conversation with yourself as you make your resume that, do you think that all the points in my resume would get me a shortlist, or what are my odds of getting a shortlist? If someone tells you you have zero chance or 100% chance, there's a good there's a good possibility that that person doesn't know what they're talking about, or that person is delusional. So there is no such thing as 0% or 100%. So just I'm pretty sure you would have access to some resumes that made it through the round last year. So just look at your resume and compare it with the past year track record, as well as you have a honest look for yourself. Think that will you have 2 or 3 points in your resume that put you in the top 10% of things that are there in that section and among your peers. If yes, go ahead. It's always good to have some sort of backups, right? Of course, as this uh, internship process is evolving, you will find that you will have more consulting firms visiting the campus this year. You might even have better uh, other type of roles that are there, right? We're not sure yet, but there are the horizon for the internship process is broadening. So it is always good to, while you like, well, let's say, well, something can be a first priority, you should also prepare for other things, right? As they say, hope for the best, prepare for the worst. So make sure you cover the entire spectrum and also have a honest evaluation. But uh, knowing looking at the trend, right? So previously, when consulting used to visit our campuses, they usually used to hire only for the placement process and maybe 10-15 a year. But over the last few years, because of the demand in the economy and whatnot, they have been hiring crazy numbers, right? Every year they hire now 20, 25, 30. So the scope is there. So yeah.
Just to add, just as important as peaks are, it's also important to display those peaks properly, and also display your strengths basically properly. Last year in our placement session, we saw people with clear two peaks also not getting a shortlist. I won't name the person, but yeah, those were two very. He had an HUL intern and a 9.5 near CG, and he did not get a shortlist just because the resume was not good. I had a brief conversation with someone in the company, asking why did someone like him not get a shortlist, and the answer was, it seemed like he's not putting a lot of. It seems like he has not put a lot of fight after getting that particular internship. So 1 year, there's nothing, right? And in reality that was not the case, but he just did not display everything that he had done properly. So just, take care of this, try to showcase all your strengths in a very systematic manner. It's like a ground for you to show off, really. So I mean, take care of that. So with that being said, I think, Sid, we can present our resumes, right?
Yeah. You want to go first?
Yeah, I'll go first. So,
Sure.
I think we'll just present our resumes for 5 minutes each,
Yeah, yeah.
and walk you through it, and just talk about what we put, why we put.
Sure.
Okay. Um, is my screen visible?
Yeah.
Yep.
Awesome. Yep. So here's my resume. One sec. Yeah. So this was my placements resume. Starting with acads or normal. Yeah, so let's come here to scholastic achievements. Well, I don't have any what do you call KVPY or my tax or DAD or whatever. I didn't have any of this. So and my CG was not 9 plus. So for the fact, I knew that I obviously don't have any peak per se in my academic this thing. Although there were some debates that 8.88 is also pretty good, it's close to 9, but still it wasn't a very clear peak conventionally. So what I thought is, okay, I just took, a day. I went through all my previous certificates. I tried to see what are the points that can add value scholastically. And there were some small points. I mean, these are not great points, but when put all of them together and take my CG, it does look, it does make a CADS look good. I'm not saying it makes my academic section a peak per se, and that's why I said I don't even support this peak system as such, but it does make my ACAD section look decent. It's a decent size with decent small points and a decent CG. So it's a decent section. So that's how that was my rationale behind my scholastic achievements. A lot of people said, Kia, these points are not making a lot, these are not very impactful. But I said, don't look at them individually, look at them as a group. Um, Moving ahead, professional experience. So yeah, I mean, this is where I knew this is the section that can make a difference for me. So I mean, yeah, GS was there, but I want you to take a look at this my ways intern. I have tried to uh, you know uh, showcase the impact that I created working in this early stage startup. Because as Siddharth mentioned, it is very important to showcase your impact, especially when there's no brand. Like MyWays is not a brand; it's a very early stage startup. So it became very important to showcase my impact. So that's how I really, framed my points. So my resume is there in the drive as well, like the resume archive. Yeah, so I felt these points did show that, yeah, some amount of impact was created. The CEO gave me a performance bonus, applauded, and I have tried to use a metric. So I told them that I've tried to display that I led a cross functional team as well, which basically is the essence of product management. So yeah, I mean, this can be one way of showing the impact that you have created. Moving ahead to PORs. So again, Case Club was a new club back then. It had only been what 3 or 4 months when I was making this resume. So didn't really have a lot of stuff to put except for just consult 101 and a few initiatives that we had done till then. So I just used those points only to put them in the most impactful manner. So I used a lot of quantitative data here to showcase that the impact that was created. So we collected feedback. So Consult 101 was conducted last year as well. We collected feedback from people. We got an average here. We counted the number of views that we got, the number of students that were there in our WhatsApp groups. Um, we were creating institute's first casebook for product management. So it was not even created till then, but I still put it there, say like putting it as working on. So yeah, again, consultant at 180 DC. Now again, I've put these 2 points together to showcase an interest in consult. So Case Club and 180 DC combined together do show that, yep, this person has been sort of interested in consulting per se, and he has tried to pursue that particular interest through various initiatives. And for the rest of the points, I just relied on uh, 1 or 2 points, like basically the most impactful things that I did during those PORs. So when I was in Fin Club that year, we had executed the first quantum coding mock test series. So I just put that, nothing else. I mean, there were so many more initiatives, but I did not put them because it's not about the number of points or all the things that you've done, but rather the most impactful things that you did. Similarly, in spawns, I just used the amount we raised and the PR that we increased. That's it. Moving ahead. Yeah. So coming to case form. So again, this is not like a prescribed section in a resume. And this is where I got a lot of help from my seniors. So as you can see, my resume did not have multiple conventional peaks. Except for GS, there was only one peak, which is GS. Apart from that, the conventional peaks recognized by Insti as such, I did not have more than one. So what my senior suggested is, let's try to focus on your niche, something that you have done repeatedly or like multiple times in the last 3 4 years or even in your life, and have excelled in them. And so the section initially was not there, case competitions. I had initially put only 2 3 competitions, and I had a social impact section, and my social impact had Avanti and 180 DC. So the feedback that he gave is कि यार 180 DC and Avanti are actually not very impactful points to put on resume if put independently under social initiatives, because then I mean they're more generic, right? You can get into them. It's not like you started an NGO or you worked under some large NGO. These are insti related things which are very accessible. So they are not creating a very large impact. So having a separate social initiative section is not making a lot of sense. Someone who's in Shastra Sarang Spons would understand, because they have created their own campaigns. So it makes sense for them to put social initiatives separately. But it did not make that much sense for me. So then he asked me if I have only 2 3 competitions. I said no, like I have multiple of them. But I was not putting the last three ones here. If you see fourth, sixth, I was not putting them because I had not, come in the top three. So that's where he gave me this advice: ki even if you've not been in the top three, A, fourth is not a bad position, right? I mean, fourth is not bad. And B, if you think about it, these three competitions make my total six, right? And now taking part in six competitions definitely show this trait of me, that I have been constantly putting fight. I have uh, I have enjoyed taking part in case competitions. I have been constantly putting fight for it. I have been constantly putting efforts, and I've also done well. First three competitions, the results have been really good. Last three competitions, the result have been average. But all in all, they do make it, a good section. And not only that, these six competitions and this niche section of mine sort of justifies why was I, worthy of going ahead and making the case club, because I had that relevant experience, right? So that now sort of creates a story. So you see, if I were to show an interest in consult, I have case club, I have 180 DC, and I have this entire section of case comps, which read traces it way back to this case club, right? So basically a sort of story is being created here. Couple that with a very nice intern and a decent acad records. So this was like the story that I uh, created for my resume, and yeah, it did sort of worked out because like I got all the shortlists. Yeah, that's about my resume. uh, if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask, else Sid can continue.
Okay, I think I'll continue and we'll take the questions together.
Cool.
Yeah. Oh, and guys, before I start, so as I told you, now there was one senior, I'm not going to name who, but there was someone who told Ayush that it is difficult for him to get a shortlist, right? But he ended up getting all three shortlists, and here we are. So as I said, someone says you no or 100%, it is
Oh yeah,
probably
that
not.
senior.
Yeah.
I'll tell you. No, actually, I won't name him, but yeah, I'll tell you the exact thing that he told me. He destroyed me in 30 seconds. So he told me, dude, your CG is not 9 plus, so it's not a peak. Take light. And your other scholastic achievements, light. GS is a good intern, but it's a tech intern, right? So how does it matter to consult? And 10 people, 12 people get it every year. So even that's not that big a peak. Coming to Case Club, it's a good thing, but again, it's very new, so it won't matter. Case Cons, you haven't even come first in any one of them, and they're all national level. So it really does not matter. I mean, they're not global. So in general, you have zero peaks, and I don't think you're gonna get even a single shortlist. 30 seconds destroyed. While there were other seniors, I had a couple of seniors who told me that I will get all the three shortlists. So you will find a lot of variety in seniors.
Yeah. So which is why talking to a lot of people will also give you perspective. One will be heavily pessimistic, one will be heavily optimistic, but maybe the truth lies somewhere in between. So yeah, just a second. Uh, I hope you guys are able to see this.
Yep.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah. So this is essentially what I did. So I mean, I think I might have made a little changes to it after my placement season, but yeah, it's roughly the same. And first clarification, guys, this is a placement resume. An intern resume might not have all of these points. Maybe if you're a third year dual degree student and you're applying for interns, you might have a similar quantity of points, but it's absolutely fine if you have lesser quantity because as second years, as people who are just moving to third year from second year, it's completely understandable if you don't have the same uh, quantity of points. So yeah, and as Ayush said, right, I didn't have a lot of scholastic achievements. I didn't want to put in my JE ranks because it was not less than 1,000, and we're from IIT, and if it's not less than 1,000, I don't think it's pretty novel putting it. So I just included my minors and majors, and I thought I'd include a few things though pretty early in my life. I thought getting a gold medal and ranking first in school Olympiads and being a state topper, though early in my life, probably when I was 12, 13 years old, I thought it's worth a mention. So I did want to include them because, leaving a section completely empty does not give a good picture, especially if it's a scholastic achievement section. And I had a space constraint in my resume, which I'll talk about later. But given that that was the condition I was in, I thought it's important that I include at least one or two lines in this section because everyone has it. So I went there, and usually you will see people putting up research and professional experience put together, but I thought I'd separate it because one, I wanted to convey a message where I have done this as well as that. That was one. Second is by combining both the sections together, it might look like I have just one peak, but I thought if I separate it, I thought it would help my cause separating the professional from the research because I thought I had enough number of points in individual system. So I went ahead with that. So my research experience was basically my second year intern working with a professor from Cambridge. So it went, and we didn't publish a paper, but it was what is called a preprint. So a lesson here was that everyone told me that you should put it as upcoming publish evolving paper or paper on the work or something like that. But I knew for a fact that I was about to close that intern and I didn't have the bandwidth in me to continue and go for the paper. So I was pretty honest about it and I put it as a preprint. So it's basically a technical term for a paper that is in the earlier stages, which is on the works. And a preprint also means that you have stopped working. So I wanted to be honest there. So that is what I did. So I would genuinely recommend people being honest, not too honest. If you think something might make you look bad in the resume, you can tweak it a little bit to project you in the positive side. But in general, honesty works. There is no point lying in the resume. And if you are caught lying, copying straight out of that from the resume, right? Because resumes are usually seen by people who are recent alumni from the institute all the way up to the partners. So if people find you blatantly copying or lying, it's not a good sign. You might actually do more bad by even putting those lines. So please don't do that. And then I was working on my BTech project then. It was about 3 months old. So I just decided to put that. And then coming to professional experience, like Ayush, I also worked in GS. So I decided to put it. But the funda is with respect to research and professional experience, especially in tech, you'll have a lot of technical terms. Try to put them in layman's language because not everyone who's reading the resume will understand those technical terms. So try to put things which are easy to understand and try to quantify things if there are things that you can put with numbers. For example, let's say you did something that helped the company increase something by 5%, 10%, 20, 30%, whatever that is, right? It could be cost, it could be result in leads, it could be result in the response time of the algorithm, something. Do that. And if you think you did something good, like presenting something to leaders to the leaders of the company. And let's say if you're working in a startup, if you had a lot of time with the founder, and if you got direct appreciation from the founder, like Ayush mentioned, those things are really good things to highlight, because that says that you're good with communicating and working with the people who are probably C-suite or founders, because that is what you would likely do in a consult workplace. So these are traits that will put you in the limelight. So that was pretty much about this. Then coming to PORs, I knew that this was probably one of my strongest sections, so I decided to take a lot of space. So again, if you think something is your strong suit, I would genuinely recommend, spending a lot more space for it, because it makes sense, right? If something is, you think your, you know, selling point or a strong suit, you should spend more time or more space on it. That also says that you're smart with respect to allocating space, right? So in this case, one page of resume is your space. So how you allocate it also tells that, okay, this person knows what he's doing. So, and with PORs, I did have a little. I did have things that I wanted to cut off, because some things are not relevant. So, for example, if you have a lot of things that you want to put but there's no space, try to put the most impactful or relevant thing. And as people say, quantity is a quality of its own. So don't, if you have space, just don't think that, okay, I've already put too much of this, it's done. No, you can actually put a lot more things, provided it adds to the story that you want to convey to the person reading the resume. And second thing is that make sure that there is some basic quality that you maintain with all the resume points you put. You will know some points are good, some points are okay, some points are bad. Try to keep the bad to as close to zero as possible. That is something that you will understand as you read your own resume 2 or 3 times. And the next thing is, you can also send your resumes to seniors for proofreading, so that they'll also give you some idea. That is one. So this is with respect to uh, the POR section. Now coming to extracurriculars, I wanted to mention my social outlook, because I had done quite a few things there, and I also wanted to put some of my hobbies. The last two are my hobbies, because I thought those were good conversation starters, and it did turn out to be the case, because one of the partners who I was interacting with also turned out to be a coin collector. So we had a good conversation, and yeah, that's pretty much about it. And some people also put in these unique sections. For example, if you've worked on a lot of social projects and you think all of them are impactful and sufficiently unique, people do put out social outlook sections. People do put out sustainability sections and things like that. Let's say you're really good at sports, you can put a separate sports section. If you think you're really good at something and you want to put things like that, like Aayush put case competitions, you can do that. But there are two
People
conditions to that.
people have put
One is,
dance as well.
yeah, dance, dramatics, the stand-up comedy. I remember some person having a stand-up comedy section and all that stuff. It's absolutely fine, but there are two conditions to that. You should be absolutely passionate about that, so that if someone puts you in a spot and asks you to talk about it, you should be able to talk about it, and you should have sufficient knowledge on that thing, so that you're able to talk for at least 5-10 minutes, because otherwise there's no point. If you put a new section that is unique, more often than not the conversation is always focused on that, and people might ask you a lot of questions on that. So make sure you're passionate about it and you actually have the content, and you're able to talk about it. Because when people do put you in situations where you are forced to talk about it, or that section will have a lot more in-depth analysis from all the people who are a part of the process, that you should be okay with people over analyzing that section. So those are the small pitfalls of that, but you can go ahead and do it, and it has turned out to be quite successful. And in fact, some people have gone to the extent of going to these websites of these consulting firms, McKinsey, BCG, Bain, and all these firms. So you'll usually find that these firms are high on carbon neutral stuff, climate change, sustainability, and all these topics. There are a bunch of topics out there, digitalization and whatnot. So people pick up topics from there and see if their interest and these topics align, and try to create sections on those, because that way it's a direct connect with the firm also. But again, keep the pitfalls in mind, that you need to actually be passionate about it for it to actually work. But it has been successful in the past from what I've seen. So yeah, that's about it, guys.
Yeah, I think sports scores every year make a sustainability section. So one of my seniors made it, so he put two or three of his Shastra campaigns there. He put his DDP project, which was in that space, and he mentioned a couple of courses and one case competition. So all in all, it became like a full section, right? It had a competition, it had projects, it had courses, and it had his own campaigns as well. That's one way of creating a niche section as well.